Do you guys think the newer generations are more prone to mental health problems than the older generations? Do you guys think the newer generations are more prone to mental health problems than the older generations? No, we're just more aware and open about it now compared to OGs who kept silent and suffered in silence. Today's schools have counselors and such to help kids deal with mental health issues. ODs would come back from war with PTSD that they used to call shell shock syndrome, and abuse their families and drink and never deal with the problems. I think more people have their basic human needs met, so they are able to focus on higher human needs. With that comes the realization they have mental health issues. I think it was just ignored back then. I see my parents having friends or family members who are clearly autistic, but my parents just say they are a little odd. Or I don't get them, why don't they get their shit together? It's fully possible that younger generations are overdoing it on mental health awareness, but it's also true that older generations really weren't as aware as we are. Probably. Genetically, we are virtually identical to previous generations. A large part of what's happening is just more awareness that mental health is a nuanced thing, and not just same vs crazy. This has given younger generations a permission structure to go get diagnosed for mild to moderate mental health problems. On the other hand, there are some massive environmental changes which probably do make mental health issues actually more prevalent, not just more frequently recognized. Media is contributing a lot to body image problems. Social media is contributing to feelings of inadequacy, and it's inhibiting or replacing face-to-face interactions. 24-hour if it bleeds, it leads news media is contributing to our anxiety. We are now aware of orders of magnitude more dangers today than previous generations were. Economics have killed the American dream, global fascism is on the rise, AI threatens the very future of a job-based economy, climate change is an existential threat. All of these factors save for fascism were not stressors for previous generations. No, I think we're just more open to talking about it, acknowledging mental health concerns, and seeking active treatment. No, I think societal problems are being cast as mental health problems. Societal expectations are absurd now. Single people believe they should be able to buy houses that are large as family homes from the previous generation. We have lost third spaces and people are more isolated than ever. Social relations are distorted by social media. Diet is worse and we have sedentary lifestyles. There's a loss of greater meaning in the face of nihilist consumerism. And people really believe that the epidemic is because mental illness has always been the same, we just notice it more now. I bet that rates of mental illnesses are about the same if you account for lifestyle, diet, etc. No, we're just more prone to actually diagnosing and treating mental illness rather than just calling them queer and silently hoping they die young. Yes, simply because of environmental factors we have created. Terrible food, massive existential crises, over-medication, social media, general media, etc. I'm sure smarter people have a longer list. In the past, we didn't talk about mental health and most people didn't even know what it was. And I think life has become more complex over the years. All generations go through difficulties and structural problems of their time that are beyond their control. But I understand that before, life was more predictable. My grandparents barely had an education, and with a lot of work, they managed to buy a house and raise 5 children. Today, a person with a degree can barely pay the rent. It is impossible to maintain your sanity when the basics, having a guaranteed roof over your head, become so difficult, even with a lot of effort and work. Somebody post the damn survivorship bias meme image already. I think there's more awareness of them, but also a weird phenomenon of younger people almost wanting it or acting like they have a mental health problem. I think everything has a name and a treatment now. We Gen X had every issue that they have. Anxiety? Remember teenage angst? The difference is that now it is something they can sell you a pill for, so it gets overdiagnosed and overtreated because everyone involved makes money except the patient. All of the things these kids go through are blown way out of proportion. They are conditioned to focus on their trauma, to relive it over and over, to identify by it. We were taught to let it go, get over it, move on because no one was coming to help us. If kids today are worse off, mentally or physically, it is only because the world has learned how to profit from continuing and deepening their misery. Also, pop psychology seems to become the dominant belief system over the last few decades, and the pharmaceutical companies are very powerful, kind of like a perfect storm really. We've had roughly the same amount of mental illness for the past few hundred years, I would guess, but millennials and Gen Z certainly over diagnosed themselves, and the generations before underdiagnosed. The real number is somewhere in the middle. You really can't say anything conclusive about this until all the alphas are grown up, and you can compare overall life outcomes among similar data for all groups. That's not possible to do really. increased awareness, and testing in the last decade alone make things impossible to quantifiably define. I think younger generations are more likely to be formally diagnosed or self-diagnosed than older generations. It wasn't ADHD in my youth, it was a need for harsh discipline. Asperger's? You mean idiots of autism like Rain Man? It had double-digit diagnosis globally until the past 20 years. So something is up. Either we're recognizing and diagnosing more, and thus becoming more aware of mental health issues, or people are self-diagnosing more. Maybe both. In my family we were told to be quiet, stop crying. We were afraid of being labeled as having mental problems. Electric shock therapy in that time was a fear, and I lived in a town that had a huge mental health hospital. 56 F born in 1967 and my dad was born in 1988. I think the newer generations are more prone to mental issues because the previous generation didn't get theirs treated. There's a long way to go before the stigma is gone, but it's become a bit more normalized for segments of the population to seek treatment. I think a big part is awareness, but I also read a theory somewhere that said that in the silent boomer generations, those with mental illnesses were put in institutions. Starting with Gen X, those people were treated with medication and became part of society, and then started families and passed on those genetics to their kids, Millennials and Gen Z, in a way that previous generations had not allowed. So it may be that there are more people with mental illnesses because we now support those with the illnesses being a part of society instead of being locked away and shunned. Nope, people from older generations are the same beings as people from younger generations. People do not change as quickly as our society does. In the past, talking about mental health issues, being different or not conforming to the norm was struck down harshly. It was dangerous to be open about having a hard time, and for men especially, as deviating from the norm typically meant a persistent danger of violence from other men and society at large. So up until very recently, men grew up being taught that having basic, normal human emotions was wrong. It's better today. There are not more mental health issues, but we talk more about them now, and we can treat quite a few of the issues. Old folks are the same as young folks. We are the same being, the same animal. Our mannerisms, our vocabulary, and our points of reference in terms of reality and history differ depending on when we were born. But strip that away and we are all the same in terms of mental resilience. Trauma breaks us. A safe childhood makes for more stable adults. And we all feel the same, see the world with the same sensory system, and have the same mental processing abilities. We are you, you are me.